Okay, let me do an update. I've been seeing a lot of my friends. I want to make a few comments on some of the developments that we've had. There's a lot of sirens going on. Oh, I guess being this is going to be an update. I tried not to comment too much on the politics, too much on the news. I saw a lot of my friends today, and because I follow the news, and then there's just one article that the Polar Times put an opinion piece about the most recent developments of Mr. Trump, Robert Mueller, and all of this. And I have the videos that I've talked about Robert Mueller's past history, things of that nature. I mentioned, for those that follow some of this, Robert Mueller was in charge of the FBI. And look, it's just history. He was in charge of the Whitey Bulger fiasco, which was a mob guy in an area where I grew up, but north from me in Massachusetts. But the crux of it was Mr. Mueller's FBI was considered one of the most corrupt criminal things that took place in the history of the FBI, because it was later found out that a man that worked for Bob Mueller by the name of Connolly, if I remember, that he was engaged in criminal activity while working for Mueller. Okay, so now how much did Mueller know? He was in charge of that. That went down in history as one of the most corrupt, dishonest, and criminal acts that took place within that FBI office. Okay, so I covered a lot of that, which always caused me to question the history of Mr. Mueller, that it would not be integrity, because that happened under his watch. So that was like history of which the media, our Polar Times ran an opinion piece that called Mr. Mueller like one of the most noble men in the country. They're unable to tell you what is true and to call out corruption. In our local news, they didn't cover it. It was KIII TV that broke the story, meaning we had a very tragic murder case that took place, and there were 4 people, an older man, I think he was a Hispanic man in his 70s, and it was a break-in and a murder. But there were 4 people involved. And as the trial came up, and it just came up this last week, I guess the 3 other men that were people involved in that murder case, local murder case, I forget the exact name, but the point is the others seem to have reached plea agreements. But the 4th person, I'm assuming they felt he was the one that maybe pulled the trigger. They didn't reach a plea agreement with him, and it was a capital murder, very seriously. And I think in a few days, the jury found him not guilty. Why they found him not guilty, but KIII reported on it, and I noticed the media is kind of did a little blackout on that, because it didn't look good for whatever reason. And then the judge in the case was Manuel Banales, who has a history that I documented, media documented, but yet he's still here. What happened there, I don't know. But they didn't want the public to see that, meaning the local media is kind of does a little blackout now, because they know that the crime problem is fairly big. Now, as an honest reader and someone that tries to stay informed, I'm making a video. Sorry. As someone that tries to stay informed on issues, they just put an opinion piece. This is today's Corpus caller. And the opinion piece basically is from a former federal prosecutor, 17 years. And what they have now said these last few days, because of the filings of Mr. Mueller, honest people that looked at this were thinking, obviously he's honestly looking at what Russian collusion, was there any? But then certain people on the political sides of the aisle said, the fact that he made payments, and these were basically confidentiality payments that he had his lawyer pay to two women that he had affairs with throughout his life. And because these are types of agreements that a lot of politicians make. As a matter of fact, our Congress would make these types of payments, settling sexual harassment claims and suits against congressmen, Democrats and Republicans, paying it out of taxpayer money. So when Mr. Trump had his lawyer, Mr. Cohen, reach the agreement with Stormy Daniels and another lady, basically saying, we had consent, he doesn't admit it, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, signed an agreement and said, we'll pay you $120,000 or whatever, just to be silent about the story. Okay. That's not criminal. You had a past history of people like Mr. Clinton settling with Paula Jones, and it's not criminal to reach that type of an agreement. What this opinion piece in the Caller Times said was Mr. Trump coordinated illegal activity, felonies, facing prison time, and the part that got me mad, that the Caller Times had the gall to put, was because of those payments, which were not campaign money, which was Trump's personal money, to reach what's called a confidentiality agreement, which I just gave you an example. Our Congress had a rule, they finally changed it. They made those payments to people in settlements, and they kept it confidential. All of these Democrats and Republicans did that, and they used your money and my money to do it. But this article said, this is ominous. This information is extremely threatening to both Trump and his kids and his family. I think it was threatening for the Caller Times to have put that in there. To have the family, maybe the wife, the kids, Ivanka, to read that they had the goal to print an opinion piece that said these legal things now, which is so questionable, are highly threatening to Trump and his family. Do you have any responsibility when you report anything? Did you not deem that not only is it so questionable what you put in this paper? Because anybody with any knowledge would tell you if that's what we found in this, it's a joke. But the thing that's always upset me about this whole targeting is the kids. And so let it be known that the trash paper known as the Caller Times, which indeed is on its way out, meaning they're going to lose they have to try to survive by getting online advertisers, and they're not getting them, okay? Not to the degree. But when I read that opinion piece, it was a person who said these crimes are a severe threat. The last few days they said Trump is going to more than likely face prison time when he gets out of office, maybe his family. And an honest read of all this is, if that's what you have, meaning an actual confidentiality payment that you directed your lawyer to make, which many have done, many in politics have done these things, and your taxpayers paid, the government paid these things. That's a joke to me. But yet you presented that we have found, and then you added the hotel thing in there. Our media in this country, including that paper, have reached the point of no return in their idiocy, and in their inability and the waste of time that they spent. You could have covered what happened to the bank robber, the clear picture of the bank robber that I put up like a week ago, 10 days ago. We've had some local issues, local things that have come up. But yet they did a conviction. They showed that. Man convicted in killing. Rightfully, if he was guilty, of Stephanie Monteith. But the other ones that they don't want to show you. Just a clear read. I'm not a defender of Trump, but I see how the money and time that they have spent in these things, and then to buy into that's the crime. That's putting your own kids, Mr. Trump, in legal jeopardy. You should even question whether you should ever even print something. That could be deemed, that the Kohler Times put something in there that could be deemed a threat. That sentence, far more ominous, is what Mueller filed regarding Cohen's cooperation. This information is extremely threatening to Trump and his family. The George H.W. Bush, they want to change the name of our Naval Air Station, which is right here, Corpus Christi Naval Air Station, possibly to the George H.W. Bush Naval Air Station. No, I'm not for that at all. I don't demean George H.W. Bush, but there were some questionable things that happened these last few years. And do we overlook everything? Mr. Bush, and they admitted this in the whole Me Too movement, he had some problems that when he was taking photo ops with young girls, he would tell them. This was something that maybe they attributed to his ailing health, but that he would say, you know who my favorite magician is? Mr. Bush. George H.W. Bush would say this, and the girls in these picture shoots would say, who? And he would say, David Copperfield, and then touch them inappropriately. Okay? Now there's a lot of, look, sirens all over the place here. I have no idea what's going on. Jason P. I see them right now. See the lights? It's not Christmas. They're not doing the Christmas thing. The death that took place the other night in Flower Bluff, that's unreported. I believe the man's name is Mitch. It was a murder. From what a few people have mentioned, they don't report that as well. This is what I would say. The multitude of people question. For instance, Mr. Trump, if he used campaign money, they said it's campaign violation, and the wording they used is he paid the money to reach a confidentiality agreement, but that's not the wording they're using. They're using an illegal scheme to silence people, to influence an election. And just remember this. Hillary Clinton used campaign money, and they hired a law firm, Perkins Coie. This was illegal. But not only did they, slush fund that money through the law firm, they used a man by the name of Steele, an ex-British spy, and they had illegal contacts with Russians, using campaign money, funneling it through a law firm to have collusion with Russians to come up with that Steele dossier. All of that, this stuff pales in comparison to that. And when Mr. James Comey this week went before Congress, I would count it that Mr. Comey lied, because he said his memory, he couldn't remember key things that took place. And if he lied in that, then that's not a just man. He could have said, I'm not going to speak because of the advice of counsel. But he made multiple statements that many felt he was not being truthful before Congress when they interviewed him this week. So when you look at people and you say, we want justice and we want righteousness, not only was this article a scam and a sham the way they presented it, because multitudes of people in offices of power, including Mr. Clinton and others, making many settlements with women. When I heard Monica Lewinsky in one of the recent things, because she's doing a documentary again, or a movie came out on A&E, I didn't watch it, I was as a newsreader. But one of the things she said, Mr. Bill Clinton said to her when he had that affair with Monica Lewinsky, I think she was 22 years old, and she was upset. Her feelings were hurt, and she was going to tell her mom about what was happening. And Clinton took her in the office wherever they were, and he made a threat to her and said, do you know that you will be in big trouble if you make an accusation against the President of the United States? That could even have been deemed a threat. And our wonderful media, including that paper, they covered up for all of that. Whether it's a national scene or a local scene, they covered up for all of that. They covered up for why in our local community right here and right now, where you have people and judges and others still in these positions that have committed worse crimes than you could ever imagine. I read it's been documented, and they laugh and they sit back. That's a total joke that paper put that in there. And for those of you who are liberal and Democrat, in many ways I'm the same way. But it's an affront that you added his family in there. You're responsible for allowing this person. I don't care if he was a federal prosecutor under Scooter Libby or anybody else. Federal prosecutors have been known to do a lot of bad things, corrupt things and criminal things. When Whitey Bulger, who was still in prison and was murdered now 2 weeks ago or so, he was transferred. The family is now bringing suit because he was supposedly transferred. What do you think might have happened to Mr. Bulger? If anybody had any testimony, because Mueller, the FBI, Connolly, all those people were involved at that time, that it was a coordinated criminal activity, that according to Kohler Thomas, one of the most noble men in the country was in charge of that. His name was Robert Mueller. It's a sham that they would even include some of that. We thought it was a serious thing, that you were looking at serious offenses. And you have this opinion that Mr. Trump coordinated an illegal scam activity to influence the election. To influence the election. But yet all of the Clinton stuff, and the history of criminality. Did Mrs. Clinton, when she funneled campaign money illegally through a law firm to have illegal collusion with the Russians to get a Russian dossier, was any of that illegal to influence? It was illegal far more than this. Far more than this. Remember, your media has lost more than half the country will tell you the view I just told you. That's not just Republicans or conservatives. And then you got real issues going on, and you overlook those real issues. Mr. Bulger, his family believes that he was indeed murdered. Whitey Bulger's family believes it was very strange that they transferred him. And you're saying, what do you think happened, John? For some reason, somebody wanted Mr. Bulger murdered. And he was murdered. And the other thing I've always found so strange is people said, do you think people in positions of authority? You find this stuff as criminal, which is a joke. You print an opinion piece that actually says his family is under threat. I believe the words you allowed to be printed is threatening to his family to have read that. And then you sit back smugly Well, you covered for that judge who was also implicated in the past. They're looking for a kidnapper of a young child, attempted kidnapping of a young boy that took place on Leopard Street. I read actual reports from another media outlet that the same judge that is still ruling in this city, with all the things I covered in the past, was stopped on a prostitution sting right on that street. And that too was covered up. That came from El Defensor. Whether it's reliable or not, the others are reliable. So remember that. Your local media in this city will cover up for crimes from people who are still sitting in seats of authority today. They're still in the courts today. Bank robbers are running free today. People will, I see all my homeless friends. And I remember a few months ago, they never solved that murder. Multiple, but the girl, Brenda King maybe, on Slough Street, which is close to where my daughter lives, on the other side of town. And they were looking for a witness. I don't know the witness, but because she's from the streets here, but the other friend said, oh no, that's so-and-so. And I can't even remember the name right now. But it was an important witness to solve that murder. But my friends here said, oh no, that's whatever the girl's name was. I was not, she's here all the time. She's out in the street. They're not looking for that witness. That witness is to be found. And just today, not even dealing with it, they said, oh yeah, she's going out with this one. They're not looking for any witnesses. Okay, so I'll just do that brief update. I did see all my friends. I would just tell you, as if that's what you have found, that the criminality was basically something that other politicians did for time and out of confidentiality agreements, and you have the goal to put that in the paper as Mr. Trump directed criminal activity by telling his lawyer, get these confidentiality agreements. And then the little twist, he did it in order to influence an election. You know, anybody that's campaigning for a position and that does something to help their position that's not illegal, now you're putting it, you try to influence an election. Well, of course, you're trying to win. Was Mrs. Clinton trying to influence the election by the illegal campaign money funneled through a law firm to have illegal contacts with the Russians because Mr. Steele was not registered as a lobbyist and he was the one that orchestrated a lot of that? They're not looking for any honest evaluation. They're not putting any equity in any of this. But they were wrong in allowing something to be printed that's so questionable and then to include Trump's kids in that. And you did that. You did it. You said you put something in your trash paper that said, far more ominous is what Mueller filed regarding Cohen's cooperation. This information is extremely threatening to both Trump and his family. You were disgraced that you put that in there. I believe that you, by putting that in there, I don't comment on Nick Jimenez's family and children, though you have printed things, or the other four people in there. I don't make commentary, though you've covered up for all the Tim Archuleta and Nick Jimenez and the others. But I don't print things or post things that speak about your children. I hold you to account because of your manipulation in our city, the Calder Times, of your covering up, again, for people that had a history, when you had a not guilty in a very serious offense, and you gave a blackout to that. What about the political corruption in this community? I don't know Mr. Eric Tunches. Tunches was a local Hispanic guy that founded something. This is local politics. I'll talk a little. And he was wanting to run for a district seat, a local seat of authority here in our city, Corpus Christi. And, you know, they were all running for people. And then, like 2 days before the election, Mr. Tunches was indicted on a prostitution type thing, like promoting prostitution. It seemed strange. He went on Facebook and said, this is politically motivated. And then Mark Gonzalez, the DA, came out and said, no, we would never do anything political. But then that charge went back to January of 2017. Why that would come up now, like a few days before an election? And then someone said maybe a family relative was involved in it in the past. But I thought, and then you have these unsolved killings, murders, the witnesses that the paper put out that you were looking for, who's been, according to my friends, that person's around every day. The unreported murder of this guy 2 nights ago, not even reported. Not who knows what to just take the body and get, and yet you have time for all your political games in this community. No, it's a shame that you put that in there. And it's a shame that you would print something, whether you're with you, that says this is highly threatening to Trump's kids, to Trump's family. It's a shame that you would do that. Most people see the manipulation. Most people see how past presidencies got away with a lot of things. Most people watch this game that's being played. And we are so focused on the demonizing of Russia. So focused on it. And I think Russia and its situation in the world and the role we're playing now in some hot spots. In Ukraine, in Syria, things going on, I mentioned that. You've made yourself unable. You know, I don't want to see World War III. I could imagine our media. The areas that would be hit if there was ever something like that would be like New York City, the main media capital centers of the world, so-called. And I could see, even if Mr. Trump, and I mean, they would be rising from the rubble. Still, Trump and his family hold the positions you hold honestly. When Chelsea Clinton admitted her father was illegally using the Clinton Foundation money, books were written on it. All of these, multiple. Nobody ever reported that Obama's kids, Clinton's kids, are in high legal jeopardy. But no, the Color Times reported, far more ominous is the information is extremely threatening to both Trump and his family, which is a joke. I don't care how many years you had as a federal prosecutor. The government lies about many things, including people in these positions of so-called authority. And if you want to hold people accountable, you have to learn how to finally speak truth. And that's a joke what you've done. That's a joke what you have done. It's a joke that you had one picture of the bank robber, and then you changed it. And as far as I can tell, it looked like who I mentioned it was. And you have to shuffle the deck to cover your tails. And that you're promoting What a wonderful judge, a history of corruption, still making rulings in this city. And things that he did, even on, according to another publication, that had to do with the same thing of prostitution on, I think it was Leopard Street. It was reported he was busted in that, and he's still presented as a top Hispanic judge and leader of this community. Now, say if whoever tried to kidnap, they said it was a trucker, that young child, 14-year-old boy, if that person was connected, I'm not saying he is, but the way this community is run is that would be covered up. If it was a connected judge or a connected politico, and then they later found, that would be covered up. That's your city. Okay? Read that opinion piece. You should pull that out because it has Trump's kids in there. And it's a joke that a candidate would make a confidential agreement to his lawyer, which has been done time and eternity in this country, and you had the goal to put those words that's a high threat to his kids. You're a disgrace, Mr. Jimenez, and all of you so-called leaders of this community who cover up and say you're looking for the witness for a murder case, and murders are going unreported in this community. Murders are going unreported this week in this community. You say you have hindered our city. I read from the prophet Jeremiah the other night, right? And it's my normal reading. I wasn't even looking for that scripture. There'll be a day I'll be dead. There'll be a day we will pass. But this is how your city has been marked. Look, I opened right to Jeremiah. What did I read where's the mark that I read? They said to Jeremiah that he was speaking against the city. And the Lord had said through the words to Jeremiah, that the city was under judgment. It's basically in there. Well, I forget, I can't find the exact verse. But they said, because you're speaking these words against our city, Jeremiah, it's hindering our city, Jeremiah. And he says, this is just the word of the Lord to you. This is just the word of the Lord to you. I would hope that my kids tonight and the kids of Jimenez and all of the other talking heads in this community, I would hope that we would not be printing that something that's such a sham and a scam is a big threat to his kids. I would hope that you would have the responsibility not to allow stuff like that to be put in the paper. Because that, to me, you've just crossed the line when you do that. Okay, this is the update for today. Will they be responsible, John, and no, they won't. Will they ever recover from all of the posts that have gone all over the place? They're not going to recover in this generation. And yes, you've lost business. That is correct. And people have read these all over the world. As small as this is. I told my friend the other day, when I stopped and did that video with Furman yesterday, I normally walk on the other side of where I did the video. But that day I walked to the end of, sometimes I walk that side, but in the afternoon I walk the other side. And there's a lot of car wrecks, crashes, killings. Look, I can't tell you how terrible the driving is in the city. But I wound up spending the extra couple hours with my friend Furman. I saw him again today. I saw a lot of my homeless friends. And because we were sitting there for the extra few hours, which was okay, I didn't get to do my walk on the other side of that little Oso bridge. But then we saw a lot of cop cars come, ambulance, fire truck, but they were doing the turnaround. And I told Furman, oh, if they're all doing the turnaround, Furman, something must have happened between there and the end of that road, because they would have went the other way if it was past Flower Bluff Drive. So I said, it's got to be something right on the other side that we can't see yet, which I would have been walking there, but I was with Furman. So finally, when I left, some lady took almost her truck right into the water. I don't know if she flew off the bridge and hit that, but the cops were there. It's right was my walking spot. And you see tire tracks all there because people are always flying off that road. I said, well, it was God's intent that I wasn't doing that walk. Whether she would have hit me or not, I have no idea. Sirens. We got some teachings coming up, and I missed my reading. Stand fast and prepare thee, for the sword shall devour round about thee. I would hope that all of your children, Mr. Trump's children, Mr. Obama's children, Mr. Clinton's children, I would hope that they would not have to read something printed by a trash paper that says you're in high threat. I would hope that the Obama kids and the others wouldn't have to read, because of the things your father did puts you in a serious threat, because we as a community felt it was wrong to threaten the kids. And to me, you printed a threat. You printed a threat, because that legal opinion, that the instruction of a lawyer to make a confidentiality payment puts his kids in serious legal jeopardy. It's a disgrace that you play that card. It's a disgrace. The same paper that played that card is promoting a judge who's had all this total corruption history in this connected little Mexico mafia, who the witness they were looking for is running around daily, going out with, that's what I heard, oh, she's going out with so-and-so, the severe murder witness that you said you couldn't find. It's walking day. What a joke. What an absolute, complete debacle you have made of this city. The body of Brenda King strewn out on Slough Road. Why do you think these are not solved? Why do you think you had maybe a not guilty? Because they were in the court of a judge with a history of criminal corruption and connections that everybody knows. And you have those jurors in a courtroom realizing the history that the man wearing the robe has sent people to prison for 20 years for the crimes he's committed, and that the Kohler Times covered up for. Will you apologize for writing something that was threatening to the president's children? You will not. You will not. Will you continue to go down the road? Yes, you will go down that road. Will you clean up the corruption in Corpus Christi? No. You have no intention to clean it up. Will you expose the judge that happens to be Hispanic? But yet Guy Williams, who's a white judge, who I have not defended, you had the goal to put a front page Kohler Times, top front page, Judge Williams, criminal acts of sexual harassment. I'm familiar with the past of Judge Guy Williams, and I know his present situation. But you presented that as a front page thing a few days ago. The crime of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a workplace issue. You lied to the public on purpose. And you know you did. Because Sheriff Jim Kalin said it on Facebook. And then he pulled it down. Sheriff Jim Kalin said that the Corpus Christi Kohler Times was falsely reporting federal indictments and indictments on things they knew were not indictments, but they did it to a white judge. they play the race card. And when you get a Mexican judge with maiming people, running them off the roads, getting busted, according to El Defensor, on prostitution things over and over, connected, and the Kohler Times advocates him as one of the most righteous men. Now, do you think an Anglo's going to relocate to Corpus Christi, Texas, knowing you play the La Raza thing? Do you think they're going to come knowing that a Brenda King, white, can be murdered, body strewn out? You claimed you're looking for the witness, and according to my friends, that girl's here every damn day. What witness are you looking for? What are you doing? What are you doing in Corpus Christi? Shootings, guns, sirens left and right. Drive-bys, gun shootings every day, every few weeks you hear them right outside your door. Not in the bad neighborhoods. Yes, they said to Jeremiah, your words are bringing down. Ahab said it to Elijah. He said, you're the troubler of Israel, Elijah. You are the troubler, Ahab. Corrupt leadership is the problem in this community. Change the damn name to George H.W. Bush. Cover up the fact that he told young girls at photo ops, my favorite magician is David Copperfield, and he grabbed their asses. But yet you'll crucify somebody else for the same thing. And tell me your equity in your rulings. You have the goal to print a threat to the president's children in your paper. And that's exactly what that was. Because if your children, Mr. Nick Jimenez, the great Hispanic leader of the community who covers up for corrupt Mexican judges, tell me if there was something printed on my blog that said, your children, Mr. Jimenez, are in serious legal jeopardy because you're corruption and covering up for the Benalis crimes. And that's, we wouldn't stand for that as a community. And I hear Mr. Schumer and Ms. Pelosi, they had something going on with Trump today, talking about righteous standards. They're so full of it. All of them are full of it. And you cross the lines by not even leaving his kids out of it. You got a conviction. What happened in the other cases? What happened with witnesses to murders that you said you were looking for seriously, and that witness, whatever her name is, everybody on the street knows that girl's around every day. One day, my friends, the cops were looking for somebody. People we knew. And the cops came up, we're looking for someone. And the guy was right there. They knew he was right there. They had to do the report. So they had to go out. Did you ask anybody? And they said, John, he was right there. They knew who he was. The other one they were looking for, but they didn't want to do it. Whatever it was they were looking for. So instead of, okay, did you go out and look? Yeah, we went and looked. Like, meaning they let it go. Meaning that they might have a key witness to a murder walking around every day. And yet they put in the paper, we're looking for this person. And yet my friend said, she's here every day. To give you the image that they were out looking for that person. To give you, and they did it through the Kohler Times. But they weren't looking. You see, what we used to have something at the firehouse called pencil whipping. Now, pencil whipping wasn't right. I didn't pencil whip. It meant you really didn't check the trucks, the fire trucks. And you go through each compartment, check each tool, and some guys would like, okay, we got to check trucks this Saturday, so we're just going to fill out, check trucks. Then you go out and say, it's not there, or the stop pack's empty. And you say, so-and-so pencil whipped. Okay. So they just didn't want to really do the job. So we put This is a serious murder. Our community is going to solve it. What was your final resolution to the young person that was found dead at the university? Was that 8 months ago now? Dead on campus. No report. Nothing would happen whether that girl was murdered or not. Now, how do you expect people to relocate, to put their children in A&M University, which is right over there, knowing that your child could be found dead, and there will be no accountability for that? There will be no final conclusion that what happened there. Nope, it makes us look bad. You got people pulling their kids out of these high universities and heading north as fast as they can. Jeremiah, you're bringing the city down, Jeremiah. It was the purpose of God at a certain time in history that he says, now it's going to be uncovered. In Judge Sandra Watts, 117 District Court, I gave you a case where Miss Watts lied in her own court that I was in because I had to go to jury duty. Under Sandra Watts, 117 District Court. And they asked in the morning, does anybody have an excuse? Well, we're watching a child for a friend that had some problems with CPS, Child Protective Service. So I said, yes, actually we're supposed to meet the kid. He gets off the bus. He comes home here, and then later he gets to go to his mom's house. But we had to be here when he got off the bus for the few hours till the mom got home, something like that. But we said, okay, yes, that's my excuse, which was legitimate. I sat in the court, the Oasis court, where they found Judge Tom Greenwell's head blown off in the court. Where do you find judges murdered in the court? Where? In the courthouse. So I went to the illustrious Oasis County Courthouse and sat there all day and said, they said, okay, does anybody have an excuse here? Yes. Got somebody I'm supposed to watch. Okay. Then the bailiff says, you won't come back in the afternoon. Miss Sandra Watts, in the court with all the prospective jurors, big room, in the morning session before the afternoon break, said, and all of you will be coming back this afternoon, except one. Oh, I felt, she was mad because I got the excuse. Okay. Then the session's done, and the guy says, you won't be coming back this afternoon. What, now, how do you take that? This is jury duty, mind you. So I come to the house, and the excuse was legitimate. His name was Chris, the young boy that got off the bus and came here. And then lo and behold, in the great city of Corpus Christi, with sirens going left and right, shootings left and right tonight, my doorbell rings. And I was in this room in the back, maybe 3 in the afternoon. My wife and the child's mother was here. Her name was Sunshine. His name was Chris. He's older now, works at HEB, good boy. The cops are here. Cops are here. They got a warrant for your arrest. What? They said you fled jury duty. And I said, she released me. The illustrious Sandra Watts. I said, she released me. Okay. So I had to get dressed to go down. Handcuffs, cop car, a warrant for my arrest. Showed up at the Judge Sandra Watts, 117th District, the same building where Judge Guy Williams' head was blown off. Somebody killed that judge. And I'm in the court, I'm in the hallway. Mad. Like, you got me in handcuffs? Are you psychotic in this county? Are you mentally insane? And I was mad. I said, you get me a lawyer. You pull me back, you arrest my ass. You criminals, you get me a lawyer right now. So the guy comes out of court. Judge Watts says, keep your mouth, be quiet in that hall. I said, you tell her I want a lawyer. He goes back in. She's still, this is the afternoon session. The illustrious Sandra Watts comes out after I requested the lawyer. So you pull me here, you arrest me, and you want me, you get me a lawyer. Then the bailiff comes back out and says, oh, she says you don't need one. I said, you inform the illustrious Miss Watts what the law is. And the law is, I have the right to representation. If you're going to pull me through all this shit, when I got off duty and had me arrested for that shit, are you a disgrace to the society or not? This city is a disgrace. Then she came out. They got some lawyer from downstairs to represent me. So what's up, bro? I said, I'll do all the talking. I just want the people in this community to know they can't be treating the underclass like shit anymore. They can't be going through the rights of everybody like that. Then I went in. And she gave a very long speech in the morning session, the history of the court, how wonderful the history, which was very self-serving. So a lot of those people there had to be off their job, and she gave maybe an hour speech, just the history. But people are not there for that history lesson, Miss Watts. But then I gave her a history lesson, because I went into the courtroom, and I said, now, you gave us a big lesson this morning. I said, but the whole system depends on true testimony. And your bailiff just lied to you, because she asked at that point, did you tell him he could leave? You lied your ass off. Criminal, corrupt city you are. You damn well did tell me. And then Judge Watts lied, because she didn't remember that she said, one of you won't have to come back. And I reminded her, but you arrested me for that? But she was offended that she was in the wrong. And I gave her a quick history lesson of moral law. And I said, that whole law, founded upon Scripture, depends on true testimony. And your bailiff just lied his ass off, Miss Watts. And you forgot that you said one of you won't have to come back. And your lapse of memory caused you to go arrest a fucking citizen. When you got murders, killings, shootings, rapes, molestations by some of you. And what did they do? Did they apologize? They fined me $150. Pay it or we'll arrest you again. That's Corpus Christi, Texas. That's Corpus Christi, Texas. With the Judge Banyales still ruling with the history that he has. That's Corpus Christi, Texas. When they put out, we're looking for a key witness in a serious murder case, and everybody I know says that girl's here all day, every day, nonstop. So they made it look that way. They pencil whipped it. Do you understand? Do you understand the corruption in this place? So that's tonight's little update. Yes, Nick Jimenez and Colder Times and all of you illustrious leaders of this city. Thank you for publishing that Trump's family, even the grandkid, they're in serious, very threatening legal jeopardy. How wonderful that you would manipulate it in such a way. Jeremiah, Elijah, your words are no. Stand fast and prepare thee. I believe Miss Watts should immediately step down for that one. And I called Judge. I was mad about that, obviously. And I called Judge Lloyd Neal and complained. I said, what a disgrace that you would have a sitting judge in the 117th District Court have a lapse in memory, arrest somebody, and then when they arrested me, they lied their ass off again. Because I said, now how do you expect me to get home? You pick me up, arrest my ass at the house, I got to get home. They didn't know whether or not that young boy got off the bus yet, but he had already gotten here while I was arrested waiting, because she had a lapse in memory. Who is going to move and relocate and bring a business to this dump? To this dump. You know, the Apostle John talking about Jerusalem, a city that a lot of people had this one. It's like Sodom and Egypt, he said. The natural city that bore the holy name was a corrupt city full of devils and demons and everything else. And I told Judge Lloyd Neal, who was county judge at the time, I said, what a disgrace what this judge just did. He agreed. And what happened to all these people? They're still running the show here. These people are still running the show. And you lied, Miss Watts. You lied in your court. And your bailiff lied. And instead of the morning speech you gave to all of us about the illustrious court, you did disgrace to that court. Because if I lied and got you and arrested you, Miss Watts, because I lied about you, the wheels would be turned the other way. And you damn well did say, one of you will not be back. And your jailer said, you won't have to come. The bailiff said it. You lied. And then charged me $150 for that, besides the taxes. This place is corrupt to the core. This place is corrupt to the core. There are unreported homicides, murders, and killings that are taking place weekly in Corpus Christi, Texas. That the world may know. John, these videos have gone out and people have downloaded them. They've gone out and people have downloaded them. Along with everything else. Where's your bank robber? How come we didn't see? Why'd you change your picture on the bank robber? Child porn on a cop phone. Cover it up. Child porn. Remember that. Remember, you see, we might relocate, we might put, I think I got an hour limit on this. Remember that, everybody. Stand fast and prepare thee, for the sword will devour round about thee. The word of the Lord is like a two-edged sword, piercing and dividing asunder soul and spirit. It's discerning of thoughts and intents of the heart. Dishonor have all his saints. It's one of the songs. The last song. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. To bind their kings with chains, their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. Dishonor have all his saints. Miss Watts, you put me illegally in handcuffs and arrested me for a lapse of memory and then for dishonesty in your court. So the word of the Lord just bound you because this testimony just went forth. This testimony just went forth for your grandkids and your family and everybody to know. And sirens left and right. Vehicles driving off the road, crashing left and right. We are a city in absolute downfall.